However, the way I look at it is this way. You see, I can possibly agree with you if it was a one-off, okay? But the Muslims have a tradition. Every year,
Yes.
since the inception of Islam through the Prophet, peace be upon him, in totality, there is a tradition of every year, through memory, completing the Qur'an in the month of Ramadan, okay?
Yes.
Now, there must be a reason for it. Whatever it may be, there was a reason for it, for why it was implemented and adopted. Yes? Because the Prophet, peace be upon him, according to narrations, repeated it twice in the last year of his life. Okay? The question therefore is this: if it is as, according to you, yes, if the oral tradition is not even worth the paper it is written on, the question arises here. You know, when you say, well, the Quran is only so small. I was having a discussion with one of the gentlemen on YouTube, the rationalizer is called, on the subject of the Quran. And I said the same thing to him. I said, look, you know what? This is an amazing thing that is happening, yeah? And he was suggesting sort of along the same lines. What my suggestion was, therefore, is this. It's simple. Look, I have said this. Just bring me 5 Christian brothers or sisters who have memorized half the Bible.
You probably wouldn't find any.
Why?
Because the Bible's a lot bigger.
I just said half.
Sorry, half the Bible. The Quran is not even not sorry.
And then you can come in, brother.
Yeah. The Quran is. I don't know what you compare the Quran to in terms
Okay,
of
let's
size.
say a third.
I think the Quran's about the size of the New Testament. Is that
Okay,
correct?
can I just ask you, how many verses do you think there are in the Bible?
How many verses?
Yeah. Have you ever counted them?
I'm there, but I doesn't depend on that. I wouldn't have a clue.
Right. Okay,
Chris.
let's say 33%
Yes.
of the Bible memorized.
Well, hang on. Just
And obviously it has to be in the original language.
But sorry, just quickly sort of fast forward the conversation. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to get covered.
Well, I'll tell you the point I'm making. The point I'm making, I'll simplify.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry.
The wonderful presence of oral tradition.
Absolutely.
Memorise the Quran. That's great. It's very spectacular.
No, it isn't. You're missing a point. Sorry to interject,
problem.
Patrick. The point here is that if there was an oral tradition from the Prophet, yes, and that oral tradition remains to this day, yes,
Right.
then the totality of the Quran and the way it was revealed is intact today.
If you're basing it on the oral tradition, I would say that's very thin ice. And I wouldn't,
How? What
because-
proof would you have?
Because a proof
Yeah.
is a manuscript. Every single manuscript.
Wait a minute, Patrick. If the memorization process had been undertaken through the Prophet and has remained to this day, and we know it is, yes, has remained to this day, the question is not thin ice, the question is this, that whatever was revealed in totality is here today with us. It's logical.
One of the reasons Muslims, recite this, remember
Sorry, brother,
by
yeah.
heart, when I'm a Muslim,
Yeah,
is because the Arabic in the Quran is, different Arabic.
Yeah.
Arab, they don't speak it. Many of them, they don't understand it. Saudis don't know, and it rhymes. This is one of the miracles of Quran. It's easy to memorize.
that is, look, as far as the easy or difficult is concerned, until somebody comes with an alternative, they've got to accept it is the easiest thing to memorize. Okay, but coming back to what I said,
I could have gone 5.
sure, no problem at all, Patrick. Yeah, just like I said, you see, you have to now counter what I'm suggesting here through evidence that if the revelation came down in totality and that oral tradition remained up to this day, then whatever was revealed to the Prophet in totality remains with us today.
Okay. The evidence,
Now you said it is thin ice.
but to answer your question, the evidence is in writing. You'd always go to what's in writing. So you would look, as a Muslim, you would say the Quran is a translation of the Quran, if it's in English, I guess. So you look to the Arabic Quran. That would be your evidence. So you would use that to judge and check that people who are doing the oral, who are reciting the Quran, are doing it correctly. You'd actually have the book in front of you.
Sorry, Patrick, you are mistaken. You see, when you referred to Bukhari, yes, and you said, oh, there was an ayah here, a surah there. If I can just ask you, that incident when it took place, in what context were these verses supposed to be found? What was the instruction?
I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've actually looked at it.
Right, okay. So, if the instruction was, because Zayd ibn Thabit was the individual who was entrusted with this responsibility, he was a hafiz, one who had memorized the Quran.
Okay.
there were a few who had memorized it, okay? They were then told, right, if there is any scraps on bones or whatever, collect all of them. Have two people who can verify what had been written down, yes? What, if I can, now if you ask yourself, when you read this, what criteria did he use to determine their authenticity?
So really what you're saying is you got sort of...
No, I'm not saying, I'm asking.
Ask again one last time.
I'll ask you again. No problem at all, Patrick.
Far away,
yes? Yeah. Obviously, Zaid, when he was making, according to this allegation, the comparison between this surah, that surah, what was the yardstick he was using?
I don't know. What do you think?
We have a problem here. Because if you don't have the ultimate yardstick, you cannot determine whether that particular ayah or that variant is correct.
Okay, but
it was witnesses as far as I know.
Any sort of...
You're right.
Okay.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But the question here is this, that you still need an ultimate yardstick to determine whether what you are choosing is correct or not.
I'll add these points basically.
Please. Yeah. What's happened?
You've got Joker behind me.
Oh, don't worry about that.
So you'd be looking for the written script first of all. You need something in writing.
Brother, let him speak. Brother, let him speak. Akhi, Sabra, let him speak. Yeah, let him speak.
Sharon, not understand.
Yeah, let him speak. Go on, please, Patrick. Go ahead. I do apologize, Patrick.
Is this how a Muslim behaves?
No, look. My brother, Patrick.
Are you following the example of your Prophet Muhammad?
Brother Patrick, I do apologize. Yeah, Jazakallah. Thank you, brother. Patrick. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry,
No
please.
problem, no problem.
Apologize. Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah, not to worry.
That's fine. So, so really, when you're looking for proof, like a dispute over the Qur'an, the origins of Islam, and so on and so forth.
No, that wasn't what we were addressing.
But yes, the thing is, you're relying on oral tradition. How can you use oral tradition to go beyond? Way beyond. So basically, how can you use oral tradition?
I'll tell you how. Maybe this.
Something about a century ago,
sorry, Patrick. Maybe this will be more understandable. You see, we have got traditions: Christian tradition, Muslim tradition. Yeah. At the end of the day, you are going to have to concede to this one fact: whatever you have contained within the pages of the Bible were as a result of oral tradition.
Some of it would have been, yes, definitely, but not all of it.
Name me, on an Patrick, on an evidential basis, which bits do you think were direct from a written source? Shabir.
Shabir, I do apologise.
Not to worry. Not to worry, Patrick.
Shabir, I do apologise. Just staying focused on the Quran.
I am staying, but I am saying.
The Bible,
no. I'm talking about oral tradition.
Okay.
It was reliant on oral tradition initially, wasn't it?
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
I think at the end of the day, any neutral observer, if you stepped away from religious backgrounds like, let's say, Islam or Christianity, I went to normal sort of tribal traditions, for instance. As soon as they had writing, their traditions immediately began to rely on the written tradition, not oral tradition. Because it would be a written tradition.
Excellent.
The point is you use a written tradition.
Right. Can I stop you there? Let's go step at a time. So, as soon as writing came into vogue, you are saying, if my understanding is correct, you are saying that now because writing was taking over from the oral tradition, if there was an issue about a particular verse, you would be reliant on the written word rather than the oral tradition.
That's correct.
Is that what you are saying?
It's exactly what I'm saying.
Right. So if the oral tradition began the whole process, which one would be more authentic to you, the oral tradition or the written one?
I don't really see that. I mean,
no, I'm asking a question. Which one do you think it would be?
Sorry, we'll ask this one last time. Sorry.
Okay, not a problem at all. I'll ask you again. Yes? If there is an oral tradition and then it transferred into a written one, okay, an issue arose, are you suggesting to me that the written form would be far superior to the oral tradition?
How long after your example would the...
It's not about how long. The question is, if it was 5 years, 15 years, 50 years, 300 years, it makes it even worse the longer it goes.
No,
because
no, absolutely disagree with you there.
no, if I can finish,
Sorry,
if I can finish,
Sorry, carry on.
the longer it goes, the worse it gets.
for
Because
tradition?
for oral tradition,
okay.
yeah? Because now wherever the writing begins, it was reliant on something, wasn't it? That written form was reliant on what?
You're saying it's reliant on the oral.
No, I'm asking you. What was it reliant on?
You're going to say it's reliant on the oral.
No, I'm asking you.
Well, according to your belief.
No, I'm asking you.
What for the Qur'an?
Of course. I know what you are saying. I know it's become difficult here, Patrick, but what I'm saying is simple. You have an oral tradition. The written tradition takes over. Okay? I'm asking you, for that written tradition to be valid, it had to rely on oral tradition. Do you agree?
I'm not entirely sure whether the Qur'an was actually.
I'm not asking you that. I asked you a general question,
no,
Patrick.
but you-
Let me ask you again. This is very
Are
easy.
you a lawyer? That's
That's
you
not
are a
the,
lawyer, but trying to
no.
argue your position.
That's
You're
not the
good.
point. The point is not that. Whether I'm good or not is not the issue. The issue is a simple one. If it started off as an oral tradition, then translated into a written one, I am saying to you that written tradition had to rely on the oral tradition. Do you agree?
Of course, written in that particular.
Do you accept?
It would have to rely on the oral tradition. Yes, it would.
Do you accept?
I accept that a written tradition, if it started off an oral tradition, let's say for 100 years, take part.
Excellent.
And then
So,
writing came in, it would be relying
that's
on
brilliant,
the oral tradition.
Patrick. So that 100-year gap, in the 101st year, a problem arises about the written text. Which one would take precedence, oral tradition or written?
Once the written tradition has come into effect,
And if you have still got oral tradition,
once the written tradition has come into effect, it'd be the written tradition.
if you have got oral and written, and a problem arises in the 101st year, which one would you rely on?
Written, obviously. Because
Let me go again.
no.
I don't think you heard what I said. Let me say it
Say
again.
it again. Okay.
The written form
Yes.
was reliant on the oral tradition.
So far so good. No
So far so good.
Yeah.
The oral tradition
Yes.
gave you the written form.
Right.
The written form was reliant on the oral tradition.
Okay.
100 years down the line, after the written tradition
Yes.
continued,
Yes.
in the 101st year, a problem arises in the text
So
of the
that's
written,
upwards,
in the written form. If you have no oral tradition, you are stuck. Correct? Because you can only rely on the written tradition.
I would argue you're also pretty. It could be argued you're stuck as well, even if
You are. But now here is the point here. If you have a written tradition and an oral tradition, in the 101st year, a problem arises. Which one would you rely on, the oral or the written?
Once you've had 100 years of written tradition, I'd always go to the written tradition.
I just said the oral tradition came with it.
I've heard that, but you'd always go to the written tradition.
You would go to the written tradition, Patrick.
Particularly if you're looking backwards in history.
Okay, let's go backward according to your reason, according to your logic. You rely on the written tradition. Okay,
Yes.
so here comes Clever Clogs and asks you, what was the written tradition reliant on? Which one would you say?
Depending on the circumstances, like in Islam, for instance.
No, I know. A general question I'm asking you, brother. I'm asking you again. A written tradition, if a Clever Clog comes and says, look, wait a minute, if you want to know what the issue is, why don't you go back to the original source?
Okay.
Now, if I can just finish, the original source is oral. And if the traditions were both in tandem, which one would be superior?
It's not a case of superiority.
No, I'm asking.
Some would have been reliant on oral tradition because you had a society that a tradition started off before writing started. So that would have started with an oral tradition. Other societies, a new tradition would have started where they had both oral tradition and written tradition because writing was coming into effect, gradually filtering down into wider society. But you would always go for the written tradition. Why
Can I
would
stop
do
you there?
that?
Who says you would always go to the written tradition? Sorry, Patrick.
But you-
I just want to clarify
Okay.
in my mind.
Any person looking at like the history of a text like the Bible, like Shakespeare, like the Qur'an, for instance, any sort of variances or any sort of dispute, you would look for the written tradition. You look for earlier scripts. You begin to weigh them up. What school of writing did this script come from, for instance? You would weigh them up based on age, what school they came from, the state of preservation, and that's how you decide the best would give you the best answer for what the best script would be for today.
Okay.
You cannot use your tradition for that
Why not?
because you were not there at the time. If you're going to rely on the oral tradition, You have to be right. You have to rely on someone who's memorised whatever text is
Absolutely,
at the time,
absolutely.
And that person would have to get the live at your time.
Right.
Therefore,
Yeah.
if you go over a century, as the example you're giving,
Yeah.
you can no longer really. I wouldn't say go as far as say you completely discard it like that. Just
Yes.
maybe a little bit sort of
Yes.
too much.
Right.
You would go to the right, and also the other thing you'd look to for a text, particularly for a religious text, for instance, is does it fit the genre, the time, the politics?
Okay.
So background and so forth.
Yeah.
Half the time it's allegedly
Right.
written on. So
Okay.
you use the Bible for
So,
example.
in your opinion, the written one would supersede
I
the
get
oral.
that.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
No problem.
Okay.
You see, you just talked about the Bible's Shakespeare in the Quran.
Yes.
Okay. Ultimately, in the final analysis, you will find one thing. Okay. Whichever book of antiquity
Yes.
you rely on started off with an oral tradition.
Many would.
The Bible,
Antiquity.
The Bible,
Yeah. Okay.
the Quran,
Excuse me.
as an example, yes?
Yeah.
Now, the odd thing here is when you said, well, look, it would be the written tradition because of X, Y, and Z. Who formulated this?
What do you
Who
mean?
formulated this idea that it should be only reliant on the written tradition?
Well, common sense would
Excellent. Let's look at common sense. Common sense, according to you, if a tradition started off 1,430...
You sure you're not a lawyer?
Don't worry about that. That's a personal issue. But going to the discussion, going to the discussion,
Should be. A very good one.
no, if you go to the oral tradition and you take it forward, okay, you have got one. Will you keep quiet? Excuse me, I'm talking to him. All right. Yeah, he's my brother. Yeah, the oral tradition.
Yes.
Over 1,400 odd years ago, you have got millions of people, and this is the amazing thing, okay? You can bring two people from opposite corners of the world, bring them here, and tell them to start reciting, it would be verbatim the same. Now, it seems... Yeah? It seems odd here that where you have got such a strong tradition, yes, you are suggesting that you dispense with it in favor of a written tradition which from its inception was riddled with errors. Does that make sense?
You've only got the original tradition, yes.
No, I'm asking you, does it make sense? Please explain how.
I'll go repeat again.
Yeah.
So, what the description you're given is some form of literature and started off as an oral tradition. The written tradition, writing has come into effect, and therefore you're saying, after a century or so, if there's disputes, the oral tradition is at least equal, if not superior, because, like a chicken and egg thing, it was the oral tradition that started it off. I'm saying it's a false argument. The reasons already given, and I'll repeat them again as clearly and eloquently and shortly as I can, is that once you go past a generation which started that tradition, the first people who had that oral tradition, they're not there to verify, they're not there to give their opinion. Therefore, what you're reliant upon is what the oldest manuscripts, and any particular change there might be in those manuscripts, and difference of opinion. What is written in those manuscripts in terms of, and I'll repeat again, the politics, the sociology of the time, the weather, anything like that, religious environments. Because with those, like a detective, you actually work on what's happening.
Yeah.
And I would summarise saying, going back to what we were originally speaking about how we started,
Yes.
saying this is where possibly there are some question marks.
Yes.
That thought from the Muslims that they have to think about their own traditions.
Yeah. In conclusion, I would say this, Patrick. You see, you are absolutely right from your perspective. However, if you consider it, deeply, you will find this, that whatever written form there was, yes, and you touched on, you have to look at the geographical location, you have to look at the politics of the day, you have to look at X, Y, and Z. The fact is that whoever had that written down, that generation, once it died, there was nobody else to be able to verify it. Now, oddly enough, if you do the same with the oral tradition, you will find there isn't a problem because, and I will just follow this through, yeah? An adult teaches a child.
Yeah,
follow me through.
I'm not following
Follow me through. An adult teaches a child. The child becomes an adult, teaches the child. The child becomes an adult, teaches the child. This is just a simplistic example. yeah, multiplied by a factor of 10. That is what you get with the memorization of the Quran.
That's a completely false analogy.
No, forget about the analogy.
It's completely false parallel.
You can say that, but you don't have any evidence to prove otherwise.
Well, no,
You don't, you're right.
This is the Quran. Look at the different size between the Quran and memorizing it perfectly.
I tell you what, a very simple example. You are absolutely right.
You
have done it. Let's do this.
You've used the example.
Patrick, let's do this.
You've used the example
okay, then.
of a parent teaching a child.
No, I just used the simplistic.
This
yeah?
is the
Now,
translation of the Quran. This is the rough size. You have the Arabic size, which is proper Quran, basically from a Muslim perspective. And these are, you're asking, you're using a false comparison.
I'll tell you what we do. Can I just, Patrick, do we have a Christian brother here? You're the only one. I do apologize.
That's no problem.
Yeah? You see, here is I'm just telling you this, yes?
We're going to have to wrap up, sorry.
I will wrap up with you.
Okay.
There are Muslims here.
Yes.
Yes? I'm going to recite Surah Fatiha. Yeah? Guys, yeah? I'm reciting this in Arabic, okay? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط. You see, Patrick, you are not listening. See, they've all immediately told me stop. What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Is my son 10 years old? 11. Okay, 11. Yeah, I won't let you off.
He's biased.
Yeah, he's biased, isn't he? I tell you one thing, Patrick. You see, immediately somebody picks. Yeah, there you are. He's picked it up as well.
Okay,
now look at this. I don't know these brothers. Well, I know some of them. Yeah, I don't know these brothers. But immediately it was picked up. Why was it picked up?
Because you used a surah, which is probably a very common surah.
Now, is that what you are going to rely on as your defense?
I think it's pretty good to argue.
Okay, that is why I asked for a Christian, because I was going to start with Genesis.
Okay. I am
Patrick,
I do apologize.
a pleasure. I
God
do
bless you, yeah?
ask for anything untoward. Please do forgive me. Not intended at all.
No,
Pleasure meeting you, Patrick.
Okay.
God bless. Bye-bye.